Welcome back to part 2 of episode 5. This is Building and Navigating Podcast, short for Building Resilience and Navigating the Journey with Multiple Sclerosis. So I had mentioned in the previous part where I was admitted to the hospital after getting an MRI done from the doctor who actually heard me and listened to me and ordered that MRI for me. So I spent the night at the hospital and it was very scary because I'm like, what is going on? And it was very scary. I didn't know what to think. I'm one of those people, I just don't like to jump to conclusions because what's the point of getting scared or, anticipating something that might not even be? But at the same time, I had that uneasiness of, okay, what is it? And also just losing feeling in my legs was like not helping the situation. So I was like, okay, this is serious. I'm not too sure, but let's trust in God, right? So, I called my mom and I let her know. I don't remember all the details of what has transpired or had transpired. But I know that the neurologist was called in. Actually, 2. I think a few were called in. And because this is a private hospital, so sometimes the specialists are not always, on site 24/7. They're at other hospitals. So they were called in to just take a look at me and do different tests. And if I want to fast forward, and this is very hard for me to talk about because I have nightmares about it. And it was not a pleasant experience for me. But I had experienced or had a lumbar puncture done for me. And so what a lumbar puncture is a long needle that is inserted into your back, your spine, to get some spinal fluid from your spine so that they can test it out to see the different proteins and certain things that they do. Look, I'm not a neurologist, so if I'm making mistakes in even how I'm explaining this, I'm so sorry. But that is supposed to be used to have a little bit more clarity as to what's happening in my system, whether there are any infections or presence of anything that will help the neurologist kind of help me know what to do and lead to a diagnosis. So the first lumbar puncture that I had, I recall having my husband there. There are 2 ways to go about it. You sit and you kind of hunch over in fetal position, but your knees are brought to your chest area. So you're like this because you need your spine to bend enough so that if I'm saying this correctly, they're able to insert the needle between the discs. Because in your spine, you have your spine, and then you have your spinal cord, and then between your spine, you have discs, right? So they need to go between the area that is soft to obtain the spinal fluid. So the first attempt, and the reason I say first attempt because I had a second one. Oh, I feel very uneasy right now because it was very unpleasant. And anyways, okay, I need a moment. So the first attempt required me to hold on to my husband and bend. And I feel bad for my husband because he observed everything. And I just can only imagine seeing a needle that is so long being inserted into your wife for the purpose of trying to figure out what's going on. It's not like I'm getting an epidural because I'm giving birth. This is for uncharted waters, but it is what it is. So what had happened was one of the physicians, the needle wasn't long enough. And I need to rewind because I remember I went to the washroom or something and I came back, and tell me why I see like this long needle next to my bed. And I hate needles since I was a child. Like till this day, if I'm getting like blood work done, I always look away. I never look at whoever's doing the blood work. Like I can't. So for me to see like a needle that is like this long, I was like, what on earth is that? And what's that going to be done? And But I'm like, okay, let's do this. So of course they have to numb the area, do their job, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, they're not able to get the spinal fluid from my back because, and the reason I know this is because I was hearing in the background, like the needle is not long enough. So they're like, we're gonna have to do this again, but we're gonna ask someone else to do it, like someone who has a lot of experience. And the person who is doing it actually is like, I don't want to say a veteran, but he's experienced. So the fact that he wasn't able to do it, I think it kind of bruised his ego. So another physician completed or attempted and was successful with it. But it was traumatic for me. It was in a different room. It was kind of like in an operating room because that's what they had available at the time. And this time I was like lying on my side. I remember it was like my left side, and I was told to be in that fetal position again, except like just making sure my knees were completely like pushed against my chest and don't move. So yeah, it was very like, I'm still uneasy. Of course, they have to numb it, of course, too, before they start. It's hard because like I'm reliving this. This is so difficult. Anyways, so I asked if I can play like my husband's music because he sings, and they're like, no. Or sorry, they're like, yes, but they weren't able to find it on their phones. And I was just kind of like a little disoriented and just nervous. So they were playing other music and I was like, okay, cool, sure. And I want to say, like, I don't want to say I'm exaggerating, but this was like an hour long. And I don't think, like right now, what I know demonstrates that that was inappropriate at the time, because a lumbar puncture should not take that long. And I recalled them saying that they want to extract a lot of spinal cord fluid from me so that I wouldn't have to go through another lumbar puncture. They wanted to conduct a lot of different tests, and they wanted to make sure that they had sufficient, or I don't want to say an excess amount, but substantially amount of spinal cord fluid to do the different tests. So I think in doing that, like, I remember like feeling pain, and I was like crying, and I have a high pain tolerance. So for me to like cry, and like I was hysterical. I'm one of those people, like, you can punch and hit. Not that I'm promoting violence, but like I'll take it. I don't cry easily with like physical pain, But I remember having my lumbar puncture, and it was like taking forever, to be honest with you. I feel like it took over an hour, because I feel like they would try, and then it's like nothing is coming through. And then they will try, and then they'll get some. And so once they get some spinal cord fluid, then, it feels like ages. So I hope I'm not exaggerating when I say the whole process took an hour, but that's how it felt like. Because I remember looking at the time going in and looking at the time coming out, and I'm like, it looks like an hour has passed, you know. Maybe of the 10 or of that hour, 10 minutes of that time was like probably spent just trying to calm me down and trying to make sure I'm not disturbing my system. And I forgot to mention that I had a prolapsed disc. So it was like the MRI that I had, sorry, I'm kind of like jumping all over the place, but the MRI that I had also revealed that I have a prolapsed disc or herniated disc. So I was already in agony from that, and then having the lumbar puncture made it worse because the side effect of that is like a debilitating headache that is just like it's like evil. And that's a result, correct me if I'm wrong, from I think spinal cord fluid leaking into my spine. I don't know if I said it right, but sometimes that can happen. I also remember feeling like a sharp, weird, painful, like pain through like my right leg. And I think I don't know if they pinched a nerve or something. Like they're doing their job. So I'm not saying like they botched the whole situation or the procedure. I'm just saying these are things that can happen when you have a lumbar puncture. And it is what it is. But they successfully got, enough spinal cord fluid to be able to do some testing. So while this is happening, I don't know what's going on. I still don't know like the purpose of this. I just know that they're doing these different tests. And then another neurologist comes through, and she was like my main neurologist, and she's like, we need to put you on like intense steroid treatment just to make sure. At the time, like right now, I know what it's for, but at the time I didn't know that it's supposed to like help to significantly reduce the inflammation, So I have the intense steroid treatment, and that was very, very difficult to experience. And, my mouth tasted like metal. So I couldn't eat properly. That was difficult. So yeah, I had a psychiatrist come through, talk through my medical history, my like different things leading up until, me being in the hospital, like my lifestyle, just to get a sense of my background and whatnot. And I had to have that treatment for 5 days. So apparently that's like standard. And at this moment, it's like getting worse. So, I was being told that it could be transverse myelitis because of the numbness that was rising from my feet to my legs to my waist to like just my upper abdomen. But it stopped there. So yeah, that was difficult. And so on day, I don't remember which day it was, but day 6 or 7, I was discharged. And at this point, I can't lie on my back. I can't sit straight. So the only way I could be, or the only position I could be in, was on my back. That was the only way my body was able to be somewhat okay. And I had to it was difficult. Like the nerve pain I started to feel, it was so bad. I was on pain medication, and they even had to wean me off so that I don't get addicted. Like it was really bad, to the point where sometimes, let me just spare you that. Let me just spare you that. I've never experienced pain like I felt, and it was just the start of like unending pain for me. I was already in pain from recovering from my pulmonary embolism. And luckily, the pulmonary embolism has dissolved. And just the deconditioning, a lot of decondition that I experienced, I to this day, I don't even know if I'm okay from that, because MS came in.